I mean, at the end of the day, if you have, 50 or 60 kilowatts and you can cut material that's this thick, you need a more robust table to put that on. You
Right.
can't slam a 2-inch plate on a light duty machine. It's just not going to happen. Like your machine now is going to bend in the middle. Whereas the Cutlite machine is ready to go. If the table's rated for 2-inch or for 4-inch, you can just drop that on there, and you don't necessarily have to be the nicest about it, but
Yeah.
you can't abuse it, obviously, but it's going to take it. And that having that strong frame gives us the ability really to hold that heavy material so that we can increase the power and continue along that innovation path.
Welcome to the Metal is Life podcast, where we're talking about all things lasers. And obviously this show is about Cutlite America, which is what brings you and I together, which I'm very thankful for. I've enjoyed getting to know you over the last year and a half, 2 years, something like that now.
I would say about that. It's been a lot of fun.
It has been a lot of fun. And I think the topic that we've got on the table today is just kind of really around the design, right? So machine design, laser evolution, and things like that. And so, you're a very smart man, and but what I want to hear, I think the angle that I'd like to talk with you about it is especially on the sales side of things. So you, again, very smart guy. You're not the engineer that created this, right? So later in the podcast episodes, we'll talk to the really deep techs and specs. So, but these are questions that come up every day as you're out there talking to customers, right? And just again around the designs and things like that. So just that's what I was thinking. I think you and I could have a pretty cool conversation around the design, around the evolution of lasers and where we've gotten to in a very quick amount of time, and so that's where I was thinking we could go. What do you think?
Yeah, that works.
Yeah,
I mean, it's I get a lot of questions that people ask that I think are pretty relevant to what you guys sent me. So just in general, like Cutlite is different than everyone else. Like I got my start in the laser industry with Chinese equipment. So it's like the full spectrum. I went from like the lowest end to the highest end. So to see that difference is really interesting.
Well, that's kind of a fun story. So what's it been like? Just because you teed it up for me, what's it been like to go from the lowest in quality to the highest in quality?
It's been really eye-opening. I see a lot of people, and at this point, someone tells me, well, yeah, I got this machine and it does this, and I'd like to, what does yours cost? I'm like, well, if we're going to talk about price, then I'm probably not the guy for you. Yeah, and they're like, oh, like they kind of are taken aback by it. I'm like, well, it's all about performance. If price is your consideration, the Chinese are there. If performance is your consideration, Cutlite is there. So if you want to make your product faster with less rework and get it done with a machine that's not going to break down on you, you're not going to have service issues, you're not going to blow up cutting heads, that's where Cutlite comes in. When you're dealing with some of those other machines, they all have the moving parts inside the cutting heads. You have the ability to get contamination in there that we just don't deal with. Like coming from that service side, the amount of head contamination and head problems that we dealt with was just off the charts. It's just like your primary consideration. And for us, when you're installing a Cutlite machine, the guidelines are super clear. Like the people already know, hey, I'm going to spend, a large sum of money on this machine. So I need to have the best site prep that I can. There's no guy putting Home Depot parts together to get the gas there, and then they go, why is there particulates in there? Like they had the gas guys come out and they did it, and it cost X dollars, and no one batted an eye because that's what's in the budget for this project. Like there's no corner cutting, and that's really the biggest takeaway.
Just real quick on that same subject, though, is what's it like to represent that? Right? I mean, to like, I don't know. You and I have both been in sales for a little while, and I know what it's like to not, like, deep down not feel great about the product that I am and that I'm having to get behind, right? I mean, sometimes we've got a sales job, and sometimes we've got something that we really want to sell, something that we get really excited about selling. And you kind of mentioned that a little bit, but even from just sort of like, what's it like to get up and do your job and talk to people about it. Being able to get behind your product like you've been able to since Cutlite. I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Well, I think it's been really good. Going through and talking to people and being able to solve that problem for them is huge for me. Like that is across the board. Like, I mean, I'm only 2 years into sales, so I spent the entire rest of my career in tech support, solving problems. So once I realized that like I could solve people's problems via sales, that was just game changing for me. And then to be able to bring a product that I really actually believe in is huge. Like I know that if I sell someone a cut light machine, they're not going to have a bunch of like weird little issues across the board. It's going to work, it's going to be reliable, and I can come in there with confidence and say, look, we've put these machines in the biggest, most challenging environments out there, and they love it. It's fine. People come out and they tell me, well, I can't put a laser here. My facility's too dirty. And I'm like, I mean, this isn't the dirtiest one I've seen. I don't know where you guys are talking about. And well, they're like, really? They don't know. So having that ability to come in there and educate and have that solid team behind us, like if I bring Cutlight in a meeting, everybody's happy, everyone's excited. There's no trying to hide anything. It's very, very transparent. So I know that I can go in wherever I'm going and have that confidence behind me that we're going to be that solution for them if they give us a chance.
I had forgotten that you came up through the tech world. What do you feel like that? I believe that gives you a unique perspective, especially as you've come from and fairly recently working on these things, working on machines, working on stuff, right, and moving into sales. I feel like you are able to speak a different kind of language and speak and understand. Maybe you're finding, and I know this about you. You find a really great balance between being able to talk to engineers and then being able to talk to the business owner who's making the business, the decision, right? Those are two different conversations. And someone who doesn't have a technical background, but then also is able to speak, it's difficult for them to kind of speak to both. I know that we're getting to the machine design and kind of the evolution of lasers. That's the subject that we want to talk about. But I think that's a good springboard for us, that subject right there, just because of your unique background. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Um, just about being able to talk to the different types of people in the shop. I mean,
I think so. Yeah, that just what that experience, what your experience has been able to kind of give you, and maybe just how that shapes your conversations that you're able to have with folks on a day-to-day basis.
oh, I gotcha. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it gives me a larger sample size.
Mm.
The biggest difference is that when you go in on tech service, everyone's angry at you, because it's broken. Where you show up
Mm.
in sales, everyone's angry at you because they've dealt with so many poor salespeople. They just don't want to give you the time of day.
Right.
So then if I show up and I'm like, well, guys, what about that stuff over there? And I can bring that perspective that a lot of other people don't because I have been, in the shop working on stuff in the past. So
Sure.
it
Cool.
gives me that ability to, I guess, maybe understand their challenges a little bit better.
Cool. So then, given that background, what is it that you believe are, some of the important aspects of design when we're talking about laser design, right? What is it about the design that is kind of most important? So, and maybe just to throw in more context in there on this one is like, I've heard people get real bent around the axle around, how many screws are in this thing, and like I mean, just silly little details that don't really matter, right? Everyone hangs their sheet metal on the machine. Like that's not the part that matters. What are the things that do matter about the laser? What about the design of particularly a cut light laser that really matter? What are those things you look for?
Well, for me, I think probably the most important part is the frame itself. when you coming from that Chinese world, there's like two companies that make all the frames for every machine that they sell from that country, whereas Cutlite makes everything in house. There's ultimate control over QC, whatever it is. So you're welding up a frame that's super stiff, rigid already. It's going to be stress relieved. It's going to be all milled as one piece. So now your places where your bearings for your linear rails go, those are all right where they need to be. So now your linear rails are super straight, they're parallel. So now your machine can move really fast, it can move really precise, and it gives you that ability to just succeed in a way where you don't have to think about it. The design team at Cutlite is also part of the management team. So now they're bringing that same perspective. Well, hey, we've worked in the trenches. Now we're running the company. So we have that ability to understand all the challenges that are being faced on the floor. So they put that into the machine. It's just baked in. That's why the Cutlite machine can run for 24 hours a day, as many days in a row as you want. You
Mm-hmm.
stop for a little bit of maintenance, keep it clean, and then you're back off to the races. There's no serviceability issues. It just runs. Like you don't have to slow down for corners. Like we're
Mm-hmm.
getting an edge quality that other people aren't getting. And we don't have that like dross all over our parts. Like the time is spent, in investing in those parameters. So
Mm-hmm.
now because you have everything that's in-sourced, the control system, the linear bearings, all that stuff is controlled by Cutlite. It works together really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
There's no, well, this doesn't talk to that. Now we have to reload some parameters, or it's, nope, you're just plug and go, and then you're off to the races.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're not. I heard it that we're not a systems integrator, right? So it's not about integrating a bunch of vendors and trying to get all those pieces and parts to work together. It's all right there. And when I got to go over to Prato and to Italy and see and watch these things get built, it was one of the most impressive things to me was actually the frame shop. Watching these frames and just the fact that we're going from raw metal to the frame to that, and you really you hear it's built from the ground up, but to see it is another thing. It's pretty interesting. And as a matter of fact, one of my favorite things to do for customers that purchase, if they choose to, they can go over and see their machine getting built. Oh, apparently that's a thumbs up right there. Cool.
Okay.
um does yours do that? You
I
do that?
saw it on there, but I don't.
Look at there.
Oh, that's cool. How'd you do
I
that?
thought I had that turned off. There's another one. Hold on. There. Oh,
That's a win. Okay.
yeah. So exciting. Wow.
Cool. So it
But
just
to take us,
recognizes that we're doing that and it just does it.
it does. I know.
All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. You have to turn that junk off. And I thought I did, and I did not. So
Okay.
that's just an extra little surprise for anyone who likes that kind of thing.
Can't go wrong.
Um, Yeah, but speaking of surprises, we love to take customers over to Italy to when they've bought the machine to be able to see this thing, and it's just a neat experience. I mean, one, it's Italy, right? But then also to see the machine from frame into what it would, what obviously that they bought, and that's the ROI machine that they're going to have placed in their building and making them money. So that's just a fun experience, but. Um, well, good. So the frame, any other aspects? We talked about the frame. That's obviously super important. You talked about the rigidity of the frame. I am not going to get into the engineering of why rigidity of frames is very important, but I know that it is. You might know a little bit more. So why is that important? Because there's a lot of machines, especially Chinese machines, a lot of lightweight stuff out there. Um, but then we like way over engineer our machines in terms of the rigidity of the frame and how heavy these machines are. It's wild. Why what's the point of that?
Well, it gives, I mean, you get a better cut quality just because you're not going to suffer any kind of movement. So, like, if you are trying to cut really fast, like, that's why the fast machine is so stiff. That's why we can do what we can do with it. just because it is that rigid. So now the frame is going to be dimensionally stable as you change directions of the cutting head as fast as you possibly can. It's not going to move around. And I have every confidence that one of our machines could take a light forklift strike and brush it off. Whereas I have experienced where someone hit a Chinese machine with a forklift and they sent it to the scrapyard. It's it was in production for a week.
Wow.
So I mean,
Actually,
it's
I think I've witnessed that exact thing happening to one of our machines,
yep,
and it's just some surface damage.
right.
Wild,
And
wild.
it gives us a lot of advantage in that regard. You know, we're very
Hmm.
durable. We're going to hold our tolerances, and having that frame that's super strong like that allows people to run the machines in a service center environment. You know,
Yeah.
operators in a service center, they might be hating their job today, and they're slamming plates up there and doing whatever it is that they do, and the machine's
Hmm.
fine at the end of the day or the end of the week, whatever it is. You
Hmm.
know, it didn't take damage.
Yeah. I had a question written down or a topic. Maybe I'll make a statement and then just see what you feel about it. Actually, that stat. What was the stat that you found earlier about the power? Yeah, so from 2001, we were at about 100 watts. That's what lasers could do in 2001, right? And then up to 2014, we could get up to 30K. Just talking about the industry as a whole, right? So then you see some 30Ks in about 2014, which obviously now we're pushing 60K and we're continuing to develop further and further in. And I was thinking about, I don't want to get into the power conversation. That's another subject for another day, but there is some correlation between power, increased capabilities, and why the design has to change to serve new needs, right? And so to me, if power means that we can cut thicker, bigger material, if that the jobs are just getting more difficult. There's a lot of manufacturers out there that are might be trying to catch up, unsuccessfully maybe, but trying to catch up on the power game, but aren't necessarily catching up on both. The design and the power have to come up at the same time. And you were just talking about the machine and all that stuff. So I don't know. There's an interesting correlation there, don't you think, about the need that's happening now because of the power, but then also the design has to. Does that make sense?
I think so. I mean, at
Yeah.
the end of the day, if you have, 50 or 60 kilowatts and you can cut material that's this thick, you need a more robust table to put that on. You
Right.
can't slam a 2-inch plate on a light duty machine. It's just not going to
Mm-hmm.
happen. Like your machine
Mm-hmm.
now is going to bend in the middle, whereas the
Mm-hmm.
Cutlite machine is ready to go. If the
Mm-hmm.
table's rated for 2-inch or for 4-inch, you
Mm-hmm.
can just drop that on there, and you don't necessarily have to be the nicest about it, but
Yeah.
you can't abuse it, obviously, but it's going to take it. And that having that strong frame gives us the ability really to hold that heavy material so that we
Yeah.
can increase the power and continue along that innovation path.
Talk to me. You've been in the industry for a while, again on the tech side of things, which again I think is really cool. In your experience and what you've seen, how have lasers evolved? So again, we see power coming up. We see it needed to be heavier duty because it can handle bigger jobs and things like that. So let's just dovetail into a conversation around how you've seen the laser, how you've seen lasers evolve over the last decade or so.
I mean, I didn't really spend that entire time in the laser industry. It was more
Mm-hmm.
structural. So in that
Mm-hmm.
industry, there's not laser leverage at all. It's all plasma. So
I
to
see.
see now that we're able to cut into some of that industry with a laser is really exciting. Like
Mm-hmm.
to run in a plasma shop,
Did you do that on purpose?
what,
That was a pretty punny
I guess.
cut into that industry with
Oh
a
no, that
laser.
just happens.
Really? That was
Yeah,
good.
it's good stuff. I
I like
try.
that.
I don't try. It just
That's gonna be a
happens.
clip, I think.
Okay.
All right.
But
Keep
no,
going.
with the structural industry, you're running a 400 amp plasma. So then they're cutting maybe inch thick beams or 2-inch thick plates all day on these machines. So now in that industry, Cutlite came in and said, "Hey, we can do that too, to the point now where the structural guys are playing catch up. They're rebranding someone else's machine because they couldn't bring their own to market in enough time. So now we've given those fabricators a better option, at least in my opinion, to do their work faster with more precision. Like they can cut their bevels in there and in a way that you couldn't do with plasma. Like I talked to a guy a couple weeks ago, and they are machining bevels in all their parts because their plasma can't hold that tolerance. So for them to look at a bevel cutting laser, now they can eliminate a secondary operation. And for them, that would be game changing.
One of my favorite machines that we've got right now is the Fiber HD. And so it's kind of built like a plasma. It's got that gantry that moves up and down the table, and you can expand it, which we'll talk about scalability here in a minute. Just kind of from a design feature, the scalability of some of the things we've got. But uh, just the ability. You coming from plasma background, coming from structural into obviously the laser kind of things, and I'm just curious, what if you were not selling lasers right now, and you were still in structural, or you were still a plasma guy? What would you be looking at? What would you be seeing as lasers are coming up and now actually being an option, like you said, or potentially even a better option in some use cases than plasma? What would be your thoughts if you were on the other side of that
Oh, I'd be
fence?
terrified if I was
Yeah.
running a plasma company at this point. The
Mm-hmm.
writing is really on the wall. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's when you look at where the industry is going as a whole, those large customers are going to turn to laser. They're going to just jump ship. So now your big plasma empire is going to become more of a hobbyist space.
Mm-hmm.
And probably 5 years from now, people are going to be buying, 4 kilowatt lasers for the hobbyist space. But
Mm-hmm.
right now, you can put a $30,000 plasma table in your garage and pay that off in a year, doing things that nobody else in the neighborhood is doing.
Yeah.
So it's that I think is where that industry is going as a whole. It's going to become really marginalized,
Mm.
small shops, low volume stuff that can't justify, that purchase of a laser. They just don't have the work. So,
Sure.
but for someone that's doing any kind of production work, it has to be laser. There's no real reason to buy another plasma table at this point.
Interesting. So, one of the real reasons for it is also one thing that I think plasma does well is it can be a tool. Like you can mount a lot of different things to the gantries and whatnot, right? So I think that's cool. That's why I like the FHD, is because you can do similar things, right? So you can have on the single gantry, or even you can have a separate gantry, and you can run drills and stuff, other things. You can run other things on the machine. So it competes really well with all the versatility, I guess. So I want to move that into like a scalability kind of conversation. So the design of the Cutlite machine, of a Cutlite laser, and it doesn't matter which one we're talking about. It doesn't have to just be the FHD. There's some of them that are even more scalable than others, but what are the different aspects of scalability? And maybe I'll tee you up for where I'm thinking. It's like, uh, I've heard, or I've seen cases where we can even scale up power, right? So like, let's say you bought a 20K, but you really want to move to a 40K. We can do things like that. That the FHD, you can actually scale the size of it, automation. Why is scalability important? Why would that even matter to somebody?
Well, I mean, if maybe your business grows, and you decide that, okay, well, my machine in the FHD case, the table can hold 4-inch material. So now with the cutting head that we have, being able to work at all those different wattages, you get a 20K, you get in the game, you're living the dream, cutting 2-inch material. Now your business takes off and you realize, oh man, maybe instead of cutting a single 40-foot plate, it would be nice to be able to put two 40-foot plates on there, or switch from 220s to 240s, whatever it is. Now you just slam some extra tables on there, you increase your power level, and you're doing a whole different, market essentially. Your business grew, so now your machine grew with that business. And because you're using the same cutting head, the same infrastructure with Cutlite, it's really plug and play. You just, the parts show up, they bolt right on, plug in, and then you're off to the races.
I think that's part of the big ROI conversation. You know, I mean, it's ROI is obviously the big is the main driver. It should be the main driver of the purchase in the first place. You need to make money with this machine, right? You need to make as much money as possible, and so we sit in that ROI conversation all the time, and it's a good one. It's one in our favor all the time, so that's a good thing. But one thing that you don't think of is the scalability and on the continued ROI way down the road of when your business does grow and potentially your market grows, just whether it's within the market you're already in or you've expanded into a new market with new capabilities. Is your machine going to be able to keep up with that and adapt to what you're gonna be doing in the future, right? So I think that's an interesting part of the conversation is just scalability and the ability for the machine to be able to scale with your business to maximize that ROI forever and ever, right?
Absolutely. So, and really, as people are scaling their business and lasers are getting faster and faster, the amount of people that tell me that they can't find enough people to unload the laser has increased. So now you get to that point where the laser is fast enough, you're producing enough that you can't get the material off the table fast enough. So like it's almost like we've kind of created our own problem in that regard. So then now you have to leverage automation, and the machine is basically not the FHD per se, but some of the exchange table machines, you bake that right in. Now you get the automation, it bolts up, it plugs in, and you've just expanded your business yet again. Now you're getting material off the table as fast as you can process it. Your guys are able to sort parts and do whatever it is that they need to do off to the side so you keep your beam on time and you're still maintaining your shop throughput.
I think that's huge. These are things that you may not be able to foresee, or potentially that you couldn't afford on the front end, or something, right? So, they're the unknowns of small business is so difficult. Small, large business company. It's just difficult to run an organization because things change all the time. That's the only thing that is inevitable is change, right? And so it's I can't imagine purchasing a machine that I feel like might be irrelevant in a year or two. You know what I mean? Based off of whatever it is, I can't imagine that. No matter how cheap it is, I mean, it could be half the price. If I feel like I have to go through that whole process again, that would be very difficult for me personally, and I think a lot of buyers are that way. Yeah.
I think smart, educated buyers are that way. But there is, because of the way technology is changing so fast, there's a lot of old hat people. Like I have seen people that are, a couple weeks ago, I saw a guy that was installing a used CO2 laser, and it blew me away. I'm like, why would you do that? Well, I have another one. So now you have two CO2 lasers that are the same. You could have pulled both those out, put in one Cutlite machine, and done more work. And now you have your floor space freed up for whatever other operations you want to do. Like there's a conversation that isn't necessarily happening. Like it's not getting out there to the rest of the world yet. And that's really what I'm looking forward to, is to see acceptance grow and knowledge in the industry go up, where people are able to realize that, hey, this technology is here to stay. Some of that older stuff, yeah, it might be cheaper, but it's only cheaper today. Because if, like in this guy's case, that CO2 he bought, it could break, and now he's done. That goes to the dumpster essentially. So where does that leave him? That it says net negative. You put in a new high speed fiber laser with support. Even if it breaks, the guys show up, they fix it, you're back off to the races. Like that's where Cutlite really excels. Like we have that support that other vendors don't necessarily have. With our boots on the ground time, parts availability, and ultimate control over the entire supply chain, we're not waiting on something to come from whatever vendor. There's no like, oh, well, we have to program this, we have to load this, load that. No, it just plugs in. You hit the buttons, and then you're back in action. There's no, I guess, shenanigans really with it. You don't have to mess with it or think about it.
Which is, we're in the laser business, right? So we're here, we're selling lasers. That's our whole world. But our customers, they don't want to think about a laser. Like it's just a means to an end, right? They want to think about their business and getting. So it's like that's something that we all need to remember. It doesn't matter what we're selling. Is that the thing that's everything to us is not the thing that's everything to our customer. And those aspects you just talked about, the uptime, just get the machine out of the way, let it do what it's supposed to do, let it crank out parts and make you money, and get back to your operations, right? That's the point. And it's so expensive when you make a decision on price alone, right? It's so expensive when the design's not there, when the power is not there, when the reliability is not there, all that stuff. That's the most expensive decision that you could possibly make, because now not only it might be down, or it doesn't matter, but it becomes more of a thought process, and you can't get back to just doing your dang business,
There's a lot of people. I'll be sitting in somebody's office. They could be a VP or whatever of a business. I've seen the same slogan on more walls than I can understand, and it says "Work on the business, not in the business." And I think that there's a lot of people that are still working in their business and trying to work on it at the same time. And having a technology like a Cutlite that is really dependable and seamless allows you to spend more time working on your business instead of dealing with problems in the business. We're taking that out of the equation. It's one call, you engage Cutlite, we solve your problem, whatever it is. You're not spending hours dialing in parameters. You're not spending hours on the phone with tech service, trace this wire, do this, do that. Like if you have a problem, the guy's there. There's nothing that you have to really do other than just make parts.
Yeah, it's almost like if we're doing it's a catch 22, right? Because we
Mhm.
want to have amazing relationships with our customers. That's what we want. But then at the same time, we don't want to be seen. It's like, we want our machine to be extremely valuable to you, and for you to just know that. But for it to just do its thing, and you don't have to worry about it.
Right.
And then, which means that we don't have to be in there all that much. So maybe it just whittles our conversations with our customers down to just sales conversations, because they just want to buy another one. It's just going to scale again and then
Yeah,
again. So maybe that's it.
I believe
Yeah,
that. I mean, it's
yeah. We see that a lot, but
yeah, people when they really engage in that conversation and they learn about Cutlite and what it brings, and they see the
Mhm.
places that Cutlite has already been, it becomes a lot easier for them to have that confidence. There's been guys that I've talked to that are just like, wow, that's really what you're bringing to the table. That time savings, that material savings, gas savings, centralized
Mhm.
support. Not having to screw with anything. It just really is dependable. It
Yeah,
makes them feel good about it.
it's great. Well, we've talked about some good things. We talked about, just some of the most important aspects of a laser design, and really, what you really honed in on the frame, the rigidity of the frame, how heavy duty it is. That these aren't lightweight machines, right? We talked about scalability, right? So the design aspects, a design aspect of our machine, or of an important aspect, design aspect of a machine, should be its ability to scale into the future and handle your business as it moves forwards and changes. I think that's great. Um, I feel like we need to hit on the head design. So, like when we talk about Cutlite, obviously there's a lot of design features that go into the whole machine that are really important. Frame being one of them. There's several others. Ways that we keep the machine clean, so that or even so that it's easier to clean, so that your uptime is even better, and all that stuff. There's a lot of important design aspects, which we'll talk to the engineers about that later on down the road. But I know that you talk a lot about, probably in your conversations, I'm sure you talk a lot about Cutlite's cutting head. And that's really the secret sauce behind why we're able to innovate, really be the tip of the laser spear, if you will, when it comes to power, right? And our ability to scale that power. So talk to, talk to just some of the design. Again, we're not trying to get into the text and specs around it, but when you're talking to a customer and you bring the subject comes up around just the head, the cutting head, and the design of that. What are some of the important parts of that design, the way that that's been engineered?
The part of it that's sealed is really important. I mean, pretty much every other cutting head on the market has moving parts inside. So the fact that those are going to wear out, as soon as you start cutting with that head, you're starting to clock. So eventually you're going to go through that cutting head. They're going to tell you, well, it'll last X number of hours, but maybe it won't. Maybe there's a problem in there because it's a mechanical device. So you're still going to have a failure in there at some point. Whereas Cutlite brings something to the table that nobody else is doing. It's fully sealed from the fiber connection to that protective glass. So now, in order to have a problem with it, you have to actually have a problem with it. It's not just, oh, I collided into something and a seal went bad and now I got dust in there. It's no, there's like a real issue that caused a problem for you. It's just not an issue for us, at least not that I've seen. All our optics and stuff are water cooled. So now we're using that same head for low power and for high power. Serviceability is really common. So if you have an issue with it, there's another one on the shelf. It's really, we don't have to build something special for you. We put some lenses in it, put your right focal length set up, and then you're off to the races. It's just really really easy to deal with in that regard.
Yeah.
People are interested, when they hear about it. Like I have a picture on my phone that I show people when we talk about it, and they're always very surprised at how small it is. It's not like a
Hmm.
lot of cutting heads are real like wide and they have all this stuff in there, and ours is just almost like it's like a cylinder. It's really narrow. You
Yeah.
know, they're surprised to hear that one of our mirrors is just a mirror. It's not anything special. It's just a standard mirror. And then the magic mirror that does all your focus. But
Hmm.
it's something that gets people their heads start nodding. They really start to become interested. And when we talk about that technology, it's very eye opening for them because
Hmm.
everyone that runs a laser has replaced a cutting head.
Right.
Everyone across the board, they've had some kind of issue with it. I mean, I talked to a guy where they got dust on top of their top lens due to a problem in
Hmm.
their cutting head, and now they had to replace it. With
Wow.
Cutlite's sealed system, you don't have those problems. It
Yeah.
just works.
And even when you do, my understanding is that the cutting head is such a simple design that it's relatively inexpensive. So let's just say operator error, crash ahead, we need a new one, whatever happens, right? Whatever happens. And I've never bought a cutting head from any of our competitors, so I don't know, but I have heard it costs something. It's like 5 times more to replace one of our competitors' cutting heads than ours. Ours are relatively.
I I do hear scary numbers when people bring that stuff out, and it's in a lot of cases you creep on a 6-digit number, and you're like, wow, all right, that's a huge investment there. So now you could go through cutting head just because your operators isn't paying attention. You had a tip up. Now there's with Cutlite you can replace that nose cone. That gives you a little bit easier path as well. We just don't seem to have those problems, at least not that I've heard of.
Well, good. Is there anything else? I know that you knew this subject before we came and showed started chatting. So is there anything else that you wanted to really make sure that you said before we wrap up?
I don't think so. I mean, I think really the skeptics that they don't believe what Cutlite has to offer. The only thing really for them in that part is just to come see it in action. Like it's really easy to be skeptical of something that you haven't experienced. A video is a video, but when you really go and see it, touch it, and experience all the people, that is where Cutlite shines as opposed to everyone else. Like Yeah, I tell people that Cutlite is essentially an experience company that also sells lasers. So if you are looking for that positive experience, where people are happy to hear you on the phone, even if you're calling them in with a problem, Cutlite is your company. The if you want to cut parts and not really worry about it, again, Cutlite is your company. Like it really is, a huge difference compared to everybody else.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, speaking of that, there's actually demos going on here today. Yeah, so you
Nice.
probably heard some background noise of
No.
folks laughing. No, you didn't? Okay. Well, maybe hopefully it didn't get picked up in the recording. But anyway, I think we've had demos here. I mean, we've had several a week and it's been great. But again, to that point of folks just want to come in and see it and touch it and feel. And oftentimes that turns into, I really need this in my shop, right?
Hmm.
So it's been the Experience Center. If you have not been to our Experience Center, do come. Yeah, do come, and you can experience Cutlite. You can experience our machines. You can see them working. We're also going to be at FabTech, so I think this episode is going to be coming out right around that time of FabTech. But we're
Okay.
always going to be at FabTech, so no matter when you're listening to this, we'll be at the next one. And but definitely make sure you make it into our Experience Center, and we'll show you a good time for sure. And then we'll obviously show you the machines, which is a good time.
Yep.
Well, good. Thanks, Josh. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Brandon.